Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Kidney Stories 2. It's your Uncle Jim, and I'm here tonight with my friend, Jason Benjamin Nuñez. He's a kidney transplant patient. You can go ahead and show the photos. Who works with Kent Wrestler on Kidney Solutions. He's also the producer of Kent's Kidney Stories podcast. He's also a man of faith and an amputee and a husband and a father. He is my friend. He has a great kidney success story, and he is here with us tonight to tell us all about it. Please welcome Jason Benjamin Nuñez to the show. All right. Hey, there he is.
Sorry about that.
Little Yoda and the Mandalorian going to be on Uncle Jim's TV tonight. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Sorry, baby. The child here was dancing to that VIP intro. Thanks so much for that. I really appreciate it. So,
well, speaking of family, tell us about your wife and your children, their names, your children's ages.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, blessed to be married to beautiful, loving, caring, supporting women. Her name is Jeannie Nuñez. My two boys are Abraham, he's 15 now, and Daniel is 13 now. That picture's probably about 2 years old, I'd say. I'm looking at the prosthetic leg to kind of judge how old that picture is right now. So yeah, that's about right. That's about 2 years ago, because that's the first prosthetic leg that I had, which was 2 years ago.
Okay. Okay.
That's kind of how I identify that, right? So.
Excellent. I wanted to do a shameless plug for your show here on the network. 2 guys, 6 kidneys for PD patients. Can you tell us a little bit about the show? And I think we have a photograph of you and your partner.
Yes, sir. Yep. So while that picture is brought up there, I'll go and talk a little bit about it. Thanks so much, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So 2 guys, 6 kidneys. That's the show that my buddy Rich Thames and I co-host, which is live every second and fourth Thursday of each month, right here on the Urban Health Outreach Media. Starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, and that show is geared towards PD patients, those who are looking to have a kidney transplant done, who are seeking a living donor. And we're also going to talk about life after transplant as well. My buddy Rich and I both live in San Antonio, Texas. We both were on PD, which is peritoneal dialysis. And we got to know each other through, believe it or not, one of those national Facebook peritoneal dialysis groups. So he posted he was from San Antonio. I was already part of the group, and I was like, no way, we both live in the same city. So we would exchange messages back and forth. Thanks be to God, he received his transplant, I believe, January 3rd. I received mine January 16th. So of this year. So both of us are within a year mark of our kidney transplant. And
congratulations.
Great. Thank you very much. But yes, that show is catered towards PD patients, but also towards those seeking a living donor, regardless if you're on dialysis. If you're trying to avoid dialysis, there it is. There's a picture.
There it is.
So if there's me, as it turns out, I'm wearing the same shirt right now that's in that graphic. I must have took that picture on a Friday, because I tend to wear the same things on the same days of the week. That's just how I am. It's a little weird, but it's just how it happens.
I mean, you change clothes during the week?
Yeah, I'm kind of a routine that way, where it makes my life easier and simpler. So that's just kind of the way I do it. So yeah, just for a proof positive.
There we go. Well, I fish my stuff out of the laundry basket. When I run out of stuff to fish out, it's time to do laundry. Little shout out to Brittany Dew. Hi, Brittany.
Hey, Brittany. Thanks for coming in.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, I know that you're very serious about your faith. So
Yes, sir.
I wanted to get to that up front because it colors everything that you do. So talk to us a little bit about your faith, how it has helped you deal with kidney disease, how it helps you in general.
Oh, yes. My faith is extremely important to me, Jim. It's really what has helped carry. It's what has helped me get to the point where I'm at and where I want to go in the future. Aside from, my loving, supporting wife, my two amazing children, loving and supporting family that I have back home in El Paso. My parents, shout out to my mom and dad because I know they're watching. Hey, mom and dad, thanks for watching. Love you guys. And there's
Shout out
Jonathan
to
and Jared.
Jonathan Taylor and our good
Yeah,
friend Jared Brown.
right. You guys are awesome. So yeah, so aside from my family, on top of that, I'm blessed to have an amazing faith community here in San Antonio, Texas, who my wife and I, we do really consider family. They are beyond our friends. They're certainly our family. And aside with our relatives, our blood relatives, our brothers and sisters in Christ are definitely a part of our family here. And my faith, as you can see behind me, right? It's a big part of my life. And it's really helped carry me through these tough times, right? Being being in your mid 30s, being told, hey, you know what, your kidneys are starting to fail. uh, Down the road, you more than likely may have dialysis. You're probably going to need a kidney transplant. For someone in their mid 30s who's married and has two, young kids, that's a lot to take in. On top of that, let's add on, oh yeah, it looks like you're going to need an amputation as well. Without the faith that I have in my life and the examples that I have in my life, I honestly don't know where I would be. I really, really don't. It's helped carry us through some very tough times and helped us get through some very tough decisions. And thanks be to God, here I'm feeling great, and happy to be on your show.
Great, great. Let's talk a little bit about kidney issues. What
Yeah.
caused your kidneys to fail, and when did that happen?
Yes. So at the beginning of the show, the folks were passing around that card. That essentially was what happened to me. uh, I am type 2 diabetic, and I also have high blood pressure, right? So those two, that dynamic duel, if you will, really is what got me. Kind of feel like I was in a wrestling match, and it was one of those handicap matches where it was me against two opponents, and they just power and numbers got me. So that's definitely what happened there. I'd say it was about 4 years ago when I initially had to go to the hospital, and it was because of my foot. Me having to go to the hospital really uncovered a lot of what was going on inside Jason. That was raising a lot of concerns. Whenever blood was drawn and the numbers were looked at, it's like, whoa, there's something really going on here. So it was about 4 years ago when this started here.
Shout out to our friends Lawrence and to Kent and
Yeah,
Jonathan again. Thank you guys for listening. Um,
thank you.
were you placed on dialysis, Jason?
I was not placed on dialysis initially. I was probably about a year and a half that I was not on, about a year and a half that I was not on dialysis. I When I was diagnosed with CKD, with chronic kidney disease, I was at stage 3B, so at the tail end of stage 3, going into stage 4. And at that point, my wife and I were like, "Hey, we got to make some changes. First and foremost, as far as our eating habits go." So, every trip to the grocery store, we scrutinized every single nutritional value and those ingredient lists as well to make sure what was at the front of the ingredient list. What was that, right? Do we recognize what that is? Does it have a lot of, letters in there and it's a long word? So, so even with making these changes, my kidneys continue to decline. And about a year, it was July 2018, if my memory serves me right, was when I started on peritoneal dialysis.
Okay. When we're talking about peritoneal dialysis, This is dialysis that you're doing at home, correct? This is not dialysis that you do in a center.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, why did you choose peritoneal dialysis over uh, in-center hemodialysis? And talk to us a little bit about your friend Olga, the role she
Yes.
played in it. Did I get the name
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you did. You did. It's pronounced with a O instead of a U. Kind of sounded like that you kind of used a U there. So it's Olga. Very close though. I'll give you credit for that.
Bad Uncle Jim.
So no, you're good. You're good. So what I'll say is initially when dialysis was mentioned to me, I kind of internally thought to myself, I'm not going to go on dialysis. I'm I'm in my mid 30s. That's what you do right before you die, right? Like I'm not old. I have two young kids. I have my whole life ahead of me. I'll just write me a prescription. I'll change what I eat. I'll do what I do, but I'm not going to do dialysis. That's not going to be a part of my life. And that really was my mentality when I was first spoken to about dialysis from my nephrologist. He sent me to education class, if you will, at a dialysis center. Um, Walked out of there thinking the same thing. Not going to go on dialysis. Was not till I went home back to El Paso, Texas, and spoke with a lifelong friend, someone I've known literally all my life. She grew up across the street from my parents' house, and her parents still live there. So our families were really close growing up, and even now we still keep in contact. Olga received her kidney transplant, thanks be to God, 10 years ago, and she was on peritoneal dialysis, and I didn't know that. I knew about the transplant, but it's one of those things where unless you speak to them directly, you have no clue leading up to that what their journey was, right? So she had a conversation not only with myself and my wife, but with my parents, my brother, and this was a family affair. This is family business, right? So I
Mhm.
felt important that that conversation be all inclusive with my immediate family. So she really changed my mentality and the mentality of my wife and my family. But the way my wife and I looked at dialysis, she really opened our eyes to, hey, you know what? Just because you go on dialysis doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Use it as a bridge to get to transplant. So she really helped us understand, hey, we can work within this and we can get to where we need to get to. She
Okay.
she helped tremendously.
Okay. Tell me about some of the challenges that you faced being on peritoneal dialysis. But were there things that came up that were difficult about being on PD?
Initially the training was like after you get past that initial shock of, okay, I'm in a dialysis center. I'm sitting in a dialysis room. I'm sitting in this crazy chair where the armrests flap out open, and it's a weird chair to be in. And once you get after that initial shock and you process it mentally, the training is pretty straightforward. It's a lot of repetitiveness. As far as challenges go, uh first and foremost, I would say the sheer number of supplies and the total change the way your home goes through just for you to be on this type of dialysis. You need space, right? And that space that you create quickly is filled every month with those boxes that are dropped off.
How many
Uh,
boxes are we talking about, Jason?
we're talking 60 plus boxes.
That's
And
a few.
so I received supply delivery once a month. So yeah, I believe the options is every 2 weeks or once a month. So I went with the once a month option, and boxes and boxes just kept coming upstairs, and little by little, as the days passed, I would chip away at those boxes. I began to see part of the wall again, but at the same time next month, that wall was gone again because those boxes just showed up.
Excellent. Excellent. For people that are on dialysis and are awaiting transplant, from your experience, do you have any suggestions you can make to those folks?
Yes. What I would say for those that are, pursuing transplants and you find yourself on dialysis right now, regardless if it's hemo, if it's PD, if it's in-center hemo, home hemo, whatever the case is, one I would say is continue to do your treatment. Do not skip a treatment. You need to keep your body rid of that fluid and rid of those toxins, so that way your body is ready for transplant. Be compliant, not only with your treatments, but with your doctor. Make it to your appointments. Make it to your lab draws. Take your medication. Take your binders. Every time you eat, take your binders. I am 10 months post-transplant, and my brain is still wired to reach for my binders. Before I eat, still, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I still reach for my pocket for my binders. I cannot remove that from my brain as of yet. Hopefully one day soon. But so take your binders. So important. That's what I would offer to folks in those situations there.
We talked in the introduction a bit, and you mentioned as part of your photograph, you had a major surgery before your transplant. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, it definitely was a major surgery. So I started dialysis in July of 2018. October 19th, 2018. I had my right foot amputated below the knee. So thanks be to God, on my amputated side, I still have my knee. And so that in itself was a major surgery. And while in the hospital, I still had to do dialysis. I couldn't skip treatment simply because I was enduring this major surgery. So while I was in the hospital recovering, while I was at the rehab center learning how to navigate without a foot, I still had to do dialysis. So it kind of added a layer there of, sure, doctors communicate with the hospitals and they arrange for it, but it's still on your mind. Um, in my situation, I couldn't plug myself in. So they had to have someone come from the dialysis company to come plug me in, a nurse. So being that I was trained a certain way, I would watch and make sure they did things the way I was trained. And if they didn't do it that way, I'd be, excuse me, if I'm not mistaken, you're supposed to do it this way. Okay, thanks. I, appreciate it. I'm not one to tell someone how to do their job, but, given my, PD treatment, I wanted to make sure that it was done properly, right? So I would always keep a close eye on them whenever they were plugging me in or disconnecting me.
Where was the surgery done, Jason?
Surgery was done here in San Antonio, Texas. It was done at the Nix Hospital, downtown San Antonio.
Okay.
Right
Explain there he is. That's the transplant surgery.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the circumstances that led up to your diagnosis, and things that were possible, things that were not possible. Ultimately, I understand you exhausted all your options. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So 4 years ago, Memorial Day, we came home from a trip, slightly out of town just for the weekend, and months leading up to that. And for those that are watching, thank you so much for watching. When your body starts to talk to you, please listen to it. Please listen to it, because I didn't. I'm going to say that I began to feel less and less support when I stepped on my right foot, going back to, I'd say, March. Now I didn't go to the hospital and act on this until, May 31st. So I'd say as soon as March, whenever I'd walk, I would begin to feel less and less support. And almost like I would place my foot down and I'd feel a drop. Like I would feel a drop whenever I'd step. And I'd noticed that my ankle swelled up. Thought to myself, I didn't twist it, I didn't bang it, I didn't hit it, I didn't fall. I must have got bit by something. Oh well, it hurts, but it doesn't hurt a lot. So I'll take some leave. Mistake, right? Those of us in the kidney world know, do not take a leave. So if that's something you're taking, please don't. It damages your kidneys. I was already in stage 3 without my knowledge, and I was taking a leave almost every day. That did tremendous damage to my kidneys. There you go, definitely. So me not knowing, right? Me not being educated, not knowing the effects of these over-the-counter medications, I took a leave for the pain, and the pain would, go away, and I would still walk. It was not until March when I had a cut on the bottom of my foot, and share with my wife, hey, I need to go to the doctor. So we go to an urgent care center. They get me back there. They look at my foot and they say, we can't help you here. Best we can do is start an IV on you, but you need to be in a hospital. So I took an ambulance ride to Metropolitan Hospital here in San Antonio, Texas, Metropolitan Methodist Hospital here in San Antonio. And they informed me, you're going to be in surgery tomorrow morning. You have an infection We're concerned it's going to get into your blood or into your bone. So you need to be in surgery very, very quickly. So the next morning, I was in surgery. They informed me they were able to remove the infection. I had a hole in the bottom of my foot, a wound uh, about the size of a silver dollar, if I'm not mistaken, and it was 7 centimeters deep. So that means I needed to have wound care and it needed to heal from the inside out. Um, there was a fear of the infection getting into in my bloodstream or in my bone. So they started me with IV antibiotics. And I spent the end of May, June, and the early part of July in the hospital, which means I spent my wedding anniversary, Father's Day, and my birthday and 4th of July in the hospital about 4 years ago. Thankfully, the infection, after numerous tests, was not found to be in my bone or in my bloodstream. They did also inform me that I was diagnosed with Charcot foot, which is a complication of diabetes where the bones in your foot collapse. So that ultimately is what led to my amputation. I did try to have my foot fused. Unfortunately, the bones had eroded to the point to where there was nothing left to fuse. So the only option at that point was to amputate.
Okay. So you had basically had exhausted all of your options.
Yes,
Tell
sir.
us, what is your attitude about your amputation? I found this to be unique, so I'd like you to talk about that with our audience.
Certainly, certainly. Well, you know, when you're first told the word amputation, right, it's fear, uncertainty, you know, almost the same response as when my nephrologist said dialysis, right? You know, fear, uncertainty. I'm young, you know, this can't be me. Honestly, how are my kids going to view me? How is my wife going to view me? You know, who cares about strangers? How are my loved ones going to view me? You know, I'm the father. I'm the protector. If we're on a road trip and we stop to put gas, we need to go in the convenience store. Am I going to look like an easy target? Does that mean my family's going to look like an easy target? These are all thoughts that go through my brain when someone tells me amputation. At the beginning of the show, Jim, you mentioned my faith, and my faith really has helped carry me through the decision process of going through the amputation. And I am I am a proud practicing Catholic. I say practicing because I don't get it right. You know, I don't get it right. And I was sitting in the Adoration Chapel one evening after going through different options, and I just remember having a conversation with God and just sitting there and praying. Finally, you know, the selfish person I am, putting myself ahead of God by thinking I can fix this. You know, my wife and I, we can find a solution. You know, and I realized, you know, it might not be God's will. So sitting in the adoration chapel praying. When we pray, we're in a dialogue with God. It's not just us, but it's God in a dialogue with us as well. So I was sitting there and I was praying, and I said the words, God, if this is your will, so be it. Not as a me giving you permission, because who am I to give God permission for anything? It was more of a me accepting God's will if this was the case. And from that moment on, up until now and beyond, I have been perfectly fine with it. Sure, every now and then there are some tough moments, but never a decision that I regret, or never a decision where I question God and go, why did you do this to me? Never. This is God's will, so be it. It's opened up other opportunities for me as well. Opportunities that I never would have had if I wasn't an amputee. So, you know, in a way, I thank God for putting me on this path.
Okay. I know you're kind of cool about the way you handle it when people ask questions or when children ask questions about your leg. Can you tell us a little bit about how you handle those situations now?
Oh yeah, I welcome it. I for the most part, you know, as an amputee, you know, as far as a lower limb amputee, I wear shorts just because I have access to my prosthesis. It's just easier that way. If you're an amputee, you understand what I mean. Sometimes you need to make an adjustment to it. And if you have immediate access to it, it makes life easier. You don't have to excuse yourself to go to the restroom or find some privacy to kind of make some adjustments there. If you're wearing shorts, not a problem. Um, but anyone who walks up to it's natural. People are going to stare. I never take offense to that. People stare because they're curious, whether they're children or whether they're adults. Children are naturally curious overall anyways. So if they stare and I kind of notice it, I don't look for people who are staring at me, right? If I notice it, I try to catch their eye, and then I try to catch the eye of the parent also. And, not to like, hey, look at your kid, they're staring at me, just more of a, hey, okay, it's fine. I'll give a wave, I'll give a thumbs up, or I'll normally knock on it, right? Just to kind of remove the stigma, the wonder of what is that? I'll knock on it. I try to be hesitant at times in regards to having little ones, you kind of feel the texture or to feel it overall. And I thank my wife so much for reminding me that it's kind of a part of, you don't want to traumatize, little one, right? You don't want to take it off and say, look, that could be traumatic. So she kind of, I want to do that sometimes just because I'm kind of a big kid at heart. So, but my wife's like, remember, you don't want to freak him out. Oh yeah, sorry. But I try to remove the stigma and just be a normal person. Hey, I'll talk to them. How are you? And normally I get asked, were you in the military, right? Which, interesting fact, the military make up a pretty small demographic as overall in the US as far as people who are amputees. I am in the majority, which is, a result of diabetes. There's other causes, right? But folks normally just ask that question, were you in the service? I'll say, no, I wasn't. It's actually due to diabetes. And they go, oh, okay. I was like, all right, and then they may ask a question or, how old are you? Or, do you drive? Or they just questions, which is fine. Anyone has a questions, I'm transparent. I'll answer whatever question they have.
Okay. One thing I've noticed is you're not reluctant to show your prosthesis from time to time.
Right.
Tell us about your progress from the time that the surgery occurred to now. What did you go through? Did you have to learn how to rewalk again? That type of thing.
Indeed. I definitely did. So I did have to learn how to get around my home without a prosthetic. It's probably about October to December, about 2 months before I was in my first prosthetic leg. So I did first have to learn how to navigate my home without a foot, right? Without walking. So I primarily use crutches when I do not have my prosthetic on. So that involves going upstairs. I have plenty of stairs at home. So I had to learn how to get up and downstairs without going at it the normal way. Once I got my prosthetic, I had to literally learn how to walk again. And a lot of that really for me, everyone's case is different. Everyone's situation is different. But for me specifically, I had to learn how to trust and have the confidence to take that step and put the weight on the prosthetic, take that next step onto my sound leg, onto my so I literally went from, once I had my first prosthetic, I went from needing both crutches and having my weight supported by the crutches to working my way to only needing one crutch, to then walking with the cane, to one day just dropping the cane and saying, I got this. Simply walking with the use of my prosthetic.
Do you drive now?
Yes, sir, I do. I drive with my prosthetic side also. I'm amputated on my right side. So that's, thinking about driving, if it's an automatic transmission, you only use your right foot. So, so even though I don't have a foot to feel, it's interesting, the nerves in the bottom of my residual limb, and when I press down on the brake and gas, I can feel the pressure. I can feel the amount of the pressure that I apply, almost like if I feel the pressure from my foot. There's a very fancy word for that I learned about 3 weeks ago, but I'm not going to attempt to say it because I'm going to butcher it. But yeah, there's a medical term for that. I just forget what it's called.
Okay, I understand now that you and your family travel like other people normally would. That you've been to Las Vegas, you've been to New York,
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes,
All
sir.
right. Were you concerned that the amputation would affect your transplant status? And I understand you have a
Definitely.
friend Gordon that played a role here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. God has definitely blessed me with people who have been in situations that I find myself in, and that are very gracious enough with sharing, their journey and the insights they've learned along the way, and their journey and those insights give me hope. That's why I never turn down an opportunity to tell my story. So yes, a friend of mine, Gordon Ludke, he's a part of the San Antonio Amputee Foundation. So fortunately, we have a pretty good sized community here of civilians who are also amputees. Gordon received his transplant as well, thanks be to God, about 3-4 years ago. And so, at one of our support group meetings, I asked him, I was like, "Hey, Gordon, I have a question for you. Did you have did you have your amputation before or after your transplant?" And that gap in time between me asking and him answering felt like an eternity, because I was hanging on an answer. Because to me, this was going to be the difference between, I think this can still happen, to going to be a long road, but we're still going to try. And he looked at me and he said, "Before." So I was like, "Wow, so you had your amputation and then your transplant?" He said, "Yeah." So like inside was the biggest sigh ever, right? I was like, "All right, I have a shot at this." So I definitely thank Gordon for giving me that hope.
I want you to talk to us a little bit about uh, your determination, your attitude about getting a kidney transplant, and the things you did to facilitate that. Because I saw a kidney page, I saw a
Yep.
YouTube video, right?
Yep.
That you did with your family. Tell us a little bit about the things that you did, how determined you were to get that transplant.
Yes. So it's kind of funny because I was having a conversation similar to this topic with my wife yesterday or the day before. Um, going through this, especially early on when you feel like there's a mountain of information in front of you that you don't understand. Um, I remember telling myself, you have to get better for your boys and for your wife. You have to get better for your boys and your wife, for your family. So that really was the internal drive that I had to find a living donor and to get to transplant. Um, Even though I had that drive inside of me, the action part of drive, right? Sometimes we associate those as the same or one and the same. I had the willingness and the want and the desire, but the action to get up and act on that was a different story. I kind of fell into this complacency with being on dialysis, where I would look forward to plugging in, so that way I could feel that fluid leave my body every night. And then
Mm-hmm.
it got to a point to where I was like, you know what, I can't do this for the rest of my life, however long that is. Now, side note, I remember my wife saying, "Hey, let's do this spring break," and now I think to myself, I'm gonna be alive until spring break. I can do this. It's kind of a scary thing to have go through your mind, but when you find yourselves in these situations, you don't know if you're going to make it till summer vacation. You don't know if you're going to make it at Christmas. You may think this may be the last Christmas present I'm going to buy for my family, so I'm
But
going to make it count.
yeah, but Chase, you put yourself out there.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah, you do.
you you put up a
Yeah, I
kidney
did.
page.
Oh
You
yeah, I
did a
did.
YouTube video. You
Yes, sir.
had friends and family that put up signs for you in two different cities in Texas
Yes,
about getting a transplant.
yes,
You connected with Kent Bressler and Kidney Solutions,
yes.
and they helped you.
They did, and that you know, I firmly believe that once again, like I said earlier, God's put these people in my life to help me. I had this desire, but it's almost like I don't know how to start, right? So I meet Ken Wrestler, I meet Amanda De Leon, and they share how they can help. And I was like, oh, why is there not a line of people at your table? Everyone should be taking advantage of this, right? So for those watching, if you do need help, Jonathan's already put it, on the comments. So look in the comments, kidneysolutions.org, contact Kent Wrestler. He will help you. He is a champion for kidney patients. And he's also a good friend of mine and my mentor. And I'm very appreciative of him being in my life and all the
Good
help
friend of
that
mine too.
he's given me. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, I set up the Facebook page, that was meant more to show me as a person, right? The human side of Jason. He has a family. He has this great need. Um, a good friend of mine, Juan, made these signs he told me he was going to do it. And then one day it was done. And he was like, hey, I have this stack of signs. I'm going to put them all over San Antonio. So he picked me up and I went with him and he put signs everywhere. He left me with a stack of signs. My parents came home to visit and my dad took them back home and my dad put them up. My parents
In El
did.
Paso.
My father. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One of the best things ever is the Facebook page now is more about my journey still after transplant. But one of the best things ever that I was able to upload and share with the world, one was a video of Juan taking off the sign. And the other was a couple of videos of my father doing the same thing. Because I had my transplant and it was going well. And thanks be to God, there was no longer a need. So that sign could come down. So that's like that end zone celebration because you scored a touchdown, that sign coming down.
Tell me about January 16th, 2020.
People can say whatever they want about 2020. Everyone has their thoughts regarding whatever kind of topic that the world is facing now. 2020 for me was a fantastic year, regardless of what happens up to this point for what's left of this year. 2020 for me and for my family and for my community was an amazing year. January 16th was a tremendous blessing in my life that continues to be a blessing every day since then and every day going forward. It is a tremendous blessing in my life.
That's the day you were transplanted.
Yes,
correct?
sir. That was the day that, yes, sir. There you go. There's
There
a
it
picture.
is.
That was
Thumbs
me
up.
on January 17th, the day after. Um, I remember vividly sitting in that chair and my wife going, okay, let's take a picture. I was like, all right, thumbs up. That's my normal pose, thumbs up. And then she's like, let's put some words on here. What should I put? Told her, new year, new kidney. So there you go. There you have it.
Excellent. Excellent. Where did this transplant take place?
Transplant took place at University Transplant Center, which is an amazing transplant program here in San Antonio. Thanks be to God, they participate in the paired donation exchange program. Me doing my own research, I realized that was going to be my best chance at living donation. And so yeah, that's where they had it. And that's where I had my transplant. And I thank my donor, the person whose kidney I have that is working fantastic. I'm going to take this time to thank them. I don't know who you are, but you are an angel. Thank you.
Okay. I want to make another shameless plug here, if that's okay with you.
Oh, yeah.
The next day after your transplant, Kent Bressler came to see you.
Yes.
He came to see you to check up on you. I know because I was there, right?
Yeah.
I was visiting in Texas. I watched him go up to your bed. I watched him check for swelling. He was talking to you. Your parents were there. Your wife was there. So the point I'd like to make is that, when you get with Kent Bressler and he helps you get a transplant through Kidney Solutions, Kent just doesn't give up on you after you've been transplanted. He works with you very hard afterwards to make sure you're okay, to make sure you're walking, to make sure you're losing weight, to make sure you're eating what you're supposed to. My old buddy Kent, he's a nurse, right? He was a nurse
sir.
with the VA, so he knows what he's doing. So
Yes.
just wanted to do a shameless plug for Kent. Tell us a little bit about how all this started. Tell us about Scott and the retreat and what happened.
Definitely. So before I get to that, I just want to add on to your plug there for Kent. For those that are watching, I'm gonna say this about Kent Bressler and about Kidney Solutions. This is something that not all organizations do. Kent and Kidney Solutions, they provide service after the sale. Now, this is a nonprofit organization, so there's no monetary exchange for his services. So there's no technical sale, but he provides services to you after your transplant. There's a service after the sale. And that's a rarity nowadays in any kind of anything. There's hardly, once the transaction happened, once the event that you're working towards happens, it's done. Not with Kidney Solutions. I still talk to Kent weekly, sometimes almost daily. So definitely it's worth looking into their website and getting a hold of Kent. He's an amazing individual. On to Scott. Scott is another hero of mine. Scott is a tremendous, tremendous man. He's a tremendous blessing in my family's life, in my life. He's a buddy of mine. He's a brother in Christ. There he is.
There he
There's
is.
Scott. There. Yep, he was there the day of transplant. Scott Mullen is directly responsible for my transplant. There you go. There's Scott again. So
Yeah.
that picture that's on the screen right there, that was taken the morning of my transplant. So what I mean by he is directly responsible for my transplant, I mean is that he also participated in the paired exchange program. So he came up to me in August of 2019 while we were working at a men's retreat for our church, and he walked up to me and he said, "Hey, Jason, I want to give you my kidney." And that was on a Friday evening, and I was like, I thanked him very much. I told him, "God bless you. Here's how you start the process." And he looked me in the eye and he said, "Don't worry, it's all going to work out." And I was like, wow, this guy hasn't even filled out the form yet. It's amazing. Like he just looked at me and he said that. And he was right. He filled out the form, he did the testing, he did the evaluation, the battery of tests that they have donors go through. And he was informed in November um, that he was a match for me. They also said, "Hey, you know what? You're also a match for another person, and you're closer in age to this other patient. Would you participate in the paired exchange program?" God thought about it, and he asked him, "Will this help Jason get a transplant?" They said, "Yes, it will." So he really wanted to donate his kidney to me. And as it turned out, he was a match for me. So he could have said, yes, yes, I want to donate to Jason. But, Scott's an engineer. So he really looks at things in a very unique way. And he agreed to do the paired exchange program. And we were a part of a chain of 4 donations that are still in progress. So there's been some delays on the 4th transplant, due to COVID. There's some other factors that we're not privy to, but that transplant has been postponed. But thanks be to God, January 16th, he was there. We were actually at his home January 15th. This was all pre-COVID, no stay-at-home orders, no lockdown, no quarantines yet for anything. So we were at his home the night before, and the morning of, he was there. He was there with me, along with my parents. They made the drive from El Paso. They were there with me as well, along with my wife and my 2 sons, along with Kent Wrestler, along with Amanda De Leon. So I kind of had a little entourage with me there, back in the good old days when you could have family and friends with you in the waiting room. And at 3 o'clock, the hour of divine mercy, I was wheeled into the ER. Scott's donation eventually happened in June, and his kidney donation was also delayed a bit due to COVID. It was originally supposed to happen in February, and then it was postponed until June. And thanks be to God, he's doing fantastic.
So
I've
even after you were transplanted, he still did his part for the swap,
he
right?
did,
Several
and
months after you were transplanted.
several months, and that speaks to Scott's character, to everything about Scott. And we kind of had a conversation. I asked him, "Hey, Scott, like, did you have to sign a paper saying that you're not going to move to Mexico or Canada or just take off to New Zealand? Like, you're on the hook, right? Like, if you move, if you disappear, they're going to send someone to find you." And he's like, "No, they said." And on the day of, I could back out if for some reason I feel like I'm not comfortable doing this. And God's a man of his word. He definitely did it. And God
Excellent,
bless him.
excellent. What a terrific kidney success story. Just
Indeed.
terrific. Shout out to our friend Jennifer. All
Oh, hey,
right.
Jennifer. Jennifer
And our
was my
friend Kent
transplant
is back
coordinator.
on again. Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Miss Kathy. How you been doing since the transplant? Tell
Thanks
us
be to
what's
God.
been
I've
going
been
on
doing
since you were
fine.
transplanted.
Oh yeah, thanks be to God. I've been doing fantastic. There's medications, sometimes you got to be careful with what's going on. COVID's kind of thrown a wrinkle into things people would think, but hey, my family and my wife and I have just come to realize this is going to be our life going forward. Once this pandemic is over and people kind of go back to their normal lives and they don't have to wear masks everywhere, you know, that's fine and dandy for them. Whenever there's a flu season, guess what? Jason's going to be wearing a mask sometimes whenever he's outside. I heard someone say the other day that this whole mentality is kind of passe for transplant patients because they're used to this already. The rest of the world is just kind of now entering our scenarios, right? So thankfully everything's been going great for me. I'm blessed. I truly am blessed. Yeah,
I
on my way.
understand. I understand, Jason, that you had some minor complications afterwards. Something about fluid and
Yes.
a 200 plus score. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, yes, indeed. So after the transplant, kind of as normal, I had weekly appointments, right? And weekly follow-up appointments uh, with the actual transplant center. So within the course of those weekly appointments, they're like, "Hey, let's have you do uh, an ultrasound." They identified some fluid buildup around the surgical site. There was a possibility that they were going to have to go in and drain that fluid. But after they did a second ultrasound, they realized, hey, you know what? We're not going to go in there yet. We're not going to drain the fluid. We're gonna leave it alone. If you begin to feel discomfort, if you begin to feel pressure, if you begin to feel pain, call us. Call the 24-hour nurse line. We need to know right away.
Yeah.
Thanks be to God that never happened. So even just kind of now me kind of keeping an eye on it and feeling around that surgical site, I've noticed that I'm assuming the fluid has eventually made its way out because before it used to feel hard or kind of stiff in that area, and now it doesn't. Now there's give, like it feels normal. So yeah, as far as that 200 plus score you mentioned, the 200 plus score was identified as a positive CMV diagnosis, which is a virus, and I had never heard of it. So the score that I had was 210. So when the transplant center identified that, like, hey, looks like you're positive for this virus. I said, virus? And they said, oh yeah, it's called CMV. I was like, oh, okay, so not COVID? No, okay, great. I don't remember anyone, testing me by inserting that long Q-tip. So I was wondering how they got that positive diagnosis there. But so they basically had me get blood work drawn weekly, and I needed to have two back-to-back uh, blood levels for CMV under 200. And thankfully, the following two blood draws were under 200. So like, okay, you're good. So thankfully, as Kent calls those are just bumps in the road, which are going to
Bumps in the
happen,
road.
right? And so just kind of to coin a phrase of Kent's, stay in your lane. So he's like, hey, you're going to have those bumps. Just stay in your lane. So that's all I'm doing, staying in my lane.
Excellent. Excellent. So if you are the person that donated to Jason and you hear this broadcast, please contact my friend, okay? Because he'd like to hear from you. He'd like to thank you personally, and he's a good guy. So you don't have anything to worry about. Um, Standard question I've been asking all of our guests recently: what are you and your family doing to take precautions in protecting yourselves from the coronavirus, from COVID-19? What kinds of things are you guys doing at home?
We're being careful. we're following the rules. The transplant center has given us some information, and there's no shortage of information anywhere, right? I can't even call my doctor's office without getting some information about the coronavirus. So there's information everywhere. There's no shortage of it. We're just making smart decisions. We're not going out without wearing a mask. We're not high fiving everyone that we see. Nothing like that. We're not being communal as far as food goes, anything like that. We're following the rules. We're being careful. Um, Even though this is something that's going to be a part of our life forever, you know, that doesn't mean that, hey, we can just do whatever we want now. So we follow the rules: hand sanitizer, wear a mask, be careful, be mindful of what you're doing, wash your hands properly. Special thanks, special shout out to Angela, Joey, and Laura at the Fresenius Dialysis Center, who helped train me and helped care for me with peritoneal dialysis. Angela trained us on how to wash our hands properly, and that has paid dividends during this coronavirus, pandemic, because of that training and because of her expectations and her willingness to show us and make sure that we did it right. We know how to wash our hands properly. So in a way, I feel like we've been on a path to prepare ourselves for this pandemic because masks were kind of a common thing with, being on dialysis. Washing our hands properly were a common thing. So when all this started, we kind of already knew what to do.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, is there anything tonight, Jason, that I didn't ask you about that you would like to discuss? Is there anything else that you would like to talk to our audience about?
Well, to talk to the audience specifically, first and foremost, thanks for watching. This is a Friday evening. You guys could be doing anything else. I'm sure there's something else online somewhere that that could grab your attention. But you're being intentional and you're watching this. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Jim appreciates it. Steve appreciates it. Thank you guys so much. Brittany asked a question asking about the verse that I have behind me, and I definitely want to talk about that. So Brittany, thank you for bringing that up there. So the verse that I have on the banner behind me, and this is by no means a shameless plug for my personal podcast, right? I'll definitely plug Kent's podcast. It's called Kent's Kidney Stories. Those of you that are on dialysis that are looking for a transplant, if you're looking for a preemptive transplant where you want to avoid dialysis and you want to learn, listen, subscribe, rate, and review to Kent's Kidney Stories. Kent does an amazing job with his podcast and he interviews some amazing people. The verse behind me, John 3:30, that's so the name of my podcast is the John 3:30 podcast. And in John 3:30, it states, "He must increase, I must decrease." And the way that has helped me is it's really helped me understand, hey, I'm not in charge, even though I fail at that daily and I feel like I am in charge. This verse really helps me understand that I need to decrease so that way God can increase. Almost going back to understanding that it's God's will. In doing so, I decreased my life and that's, to me, that's major, and to me that's important, and it's very, very helpful to me to help think of that verse. It kind of helps course correct my mentality so that way I know that I'm going down the right path regards to my health, regards to my faith, my family life, anything in this world.
Excellent. Excellent. I don't want to give anything away, or I don't want to destroy a confidence, but I do want to tell the folks you can expect more good news from Jason very, very soon. So stay
Indeed.
tuned. Stay tuned, my friends. Lawrence is asking, how are you mentally facing losing your leg and in dialysis? Didn't you have fear? Weren't you concerned about what was going to happen?
Oh, indeed. That's a great question, Lawrence. I'm human. So fear is a part of our human DNA. And it's natural to be scared. And I definitely was scared. Every time I was informed, we're going to have to amputate. Or in my case, it was told we're probably going to have to amputate that. I was told that 4 years ago when I showed up at Metropolitan Hospital. My wife and I tried for 2 years to avoid it before we exhausted every option we had. Same thing with dialysis. There is fear, but it says in the Bible 365 times, do not fear. There's the answer right there. It's human for us to fear, but we're not in this alone. And for me, and a part of my journey, faith has really helped me stare that fear in the face and overcome it.
Well, I want to say that this is a great show. I'm proud of you, Jason. I'm proud to have you as my friend. And thank you for coming on and talking to us tonight and telling us your story. Much appreciated, my friend. Next week, next Friday, Edward, why not Drake on the show. Keep your eye out for World Kidney News. Might be an announcement very, very soon about breaking news that is so new I can't even talk about it. Be quiet, Jim. All right. I'll see you guys next week.
Spoiler in the business.
Spoiler alert. I'll see you guys next week. You take care. Thank you for watching. This is your Uncle Jim signing off.
Do you know you could have kidney disease and not even know it? 9 out of 10 people who have stage 3 chronic kidney disease do not know it. The rate of kidney failure for African Americans is 3 times higher than among Caucasians. And one reason for this is that they are not aware when they have earlier stages of kidney disease, at a time treatment could prevent the damage from progressing to the point when dialysis or kidney transplantation is necessary. In addition, due to high rates of diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease, Blacks and African Americans have an increased risk of developing kidney failure. African Americans need to be aware of these risk factors and visit their doctor or clinic regularly to check their blood sugar, blood pressure, urine protein, and kidney function. Be aware. Get tested. The life you save may be your own. For more information, contact urbankidneyalliance.org.